I think red flags is a pretty loaded term because when I say that, people already assume that I'm saying he's cheating, which I'm absolutely not. But however, whatever word you want that's more palatable than that, two weird things. Obviously, the online cheating, and the second thing was the interviews. And I think even Hans would have to admit that, his behavior during the interviews was definitely strange. So that's really the extent of it to me. And
so you did a stream last night, right?
Yeah, I was in St. Louis for a day on totally unrelated stuff, and then I did a stream from there. I did a stream last night.
So I guess the first question is, I want to ask you, do you think that Magnus withdrawing could have been anything else than what has been swirling, over the last couple of days, ever since that, I guess now we can say, infamous tweet?
I think it's extremely unlikely. I think if we're honest, if it was something like illness, Magnus would understand how people are perceiving his withdrawal, so he would have clarified it. I think the chances, they're never 0.0, but they're vanishingly low. I think it's pretty safe to assume that. Okay, fair enough. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what to ask. I think there was this thing that I think you mentioned in a clip about how it's not super hard potentially to cheat as well, right? Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. I talked about that a little bit a couple of times. So over the board cheating, I think a lot of people, and I can, by the way, I think some people in the chat are saying I'm quiet. I can raise my volume a little bit.
Sure. I can also up the volume too as well. Yeah.
Okay. It should be better. But I've been talking about this for a while now. Over the board cheating, I think a lot of people who are new to chess or who come to chess through Twitch, let's say, do not realize that over the board cheating is possible at all. So a lot of people's first reactions when they hear about over the board cheating is like, how is that even physically possible? What are you saying? Stop making random, statements. But in reality, over the board cheating is possible and has been going on for decades now. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's been around since the 90s. Using technology, of course, not like another player telling you the move.
Right, of course. I think also, are you aware of that incident with Sebastian Feller, the French player, by any chance?
Yeah, I haven't heard all of the details. Was it another GM who was had developed some sort of code through which he was transmitting the moves? Is that what was happening there?
So I think what happened is that basically the team captain, I don't know if he's standing behind the player on the opposing team, but I think he would stand behind and there was some kind of very advanced signaling method. And it's kind of crazy too, because I know at the time, Peter Heine Nielsen, who's currently Magnus' second, he wrote an article saying that he thought nothing was happening. And Laurent Fresnay, who was playing on the board next to his teammate for the French team, he also didn't even know it was going on, but it was happening. So I guess I think that provides some context for people who are wondering about whether it's possible.
Yeah, and the thing about high profile tournaments is that I think if you put your mind to it, with the way technology has progressed, you cannot discount the possibility. I feel like the road to failure is that overconfidence where you say, I'm doing this, this, and this, therefore it is physically impossible to cheat. I remember I had a game in the final round of a pretty important tournament. This was an open, so obviously there weren't metal detectors or anything, but I was playing a guy who needed to beat me to get a GM norm, and he was playing black against me, so I was like, I'm not letting this happen.
Right, you just played solid, yeah.
I played solid, so he's 2380 FIDE, and he totally kills me.
Okay.
But what the interesting thing was that he came 30 minutes late to the board. He was completely disheveled. I had a voice in my head that was like, all right, this is going to be easy. Then there was a weird person who came to the playing hall and was standing over our board for literally the entire game. I sniffed something out immediately. So I immediately went to the TD. I'm like, something's going on here. I can feel it. But they basically laughed me off. They're like, stop being, the implication is that I just can't accept the fact that I'm losing, which was completely not on my mind at all. So they never ended up following up. But apparently, I later found out that the spectator who was standing over our board had a phone on him, which was illegal in the tournament hall. And they never ended up inspecting his phone. So I got really, really angry. But the bottom line is that over-the-board cheating needs to be taken seriously. And people need to realize that it's not just a bunch of GMs trying to, you know, stir up some sort of false, the idea that there's a false danger. This really is something that needs to be taken seriously. That's my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously, if we presume this is what's happening with Magnus, it seems very clear, at least from the security measures that were added as soon as he dropped out, that you know, it is something that's far more serious than people realize. Because I do get the sense, at least with online, everybody feels like, well, online cheating, it happens here or there, but over the board, God forbid, it's not possible, or it doesn't happen at all, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as I was discussing yesterday on my stream, there's obviously a barrier to entry for over-the-board cheating. Nobody disputes that OTB is a lot more serious, and B, you know, a lot harder to achieve, maybe exceedingly hard to achieve in a tournament like this. But I think it's fair to say whichever side somebody is on, and if, let's say, somebody has a track record of cheating online, I was making the point on my stream yesterday that, in my opinion, it's totally fair to request that that person is ready to submit themselves to a more stringent search than, let's say, somebody who's never been caught cheating online. Like, I feel like that statement's pretty uncontroversial, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I guess, I mean, the question also, though, is that then you have to have some sort of agreement, though, right? Because, like, it's very tricky because all the online sites, I don't believe they have any agreements with FIDE at all at the moment, like chess.com or Lichess or anything of that nature. But, like, then you have to share, I guess you have to share info with FIDE or organizers in some method, probably.
Ideally, I think that would be the best path forward, is for there to be, like, clear communication between the main online servers and FIDE. Especially since online chess is now fully respected and acknowledged as almost, you know, as a full-fledged form of the game. There's a lot of money in online chess. So I think we've gotten to the point where cheating in, like, money tournaments online is a really, really serious offense that should be taken seriously and, you know, transmitted to FIDE. I don't know how you feel about that.
I mean, well, there's the obvious example, which was public, but nothing happened, of course, with Tigran Petrosian, where he was banned off of chess.com for I believe it was the Pro Chess League, or maybe, yeah, Pro Chess League, I think is what it was. But then he did show up and play, like, in the World Rapid and Blitz that, I think, like 1 year later, despite it being very, very public and very out there.
Yeah, I guess that leads to the question of, like, what should the punishment, let's say, be for online cheating? And that's where I think you get into the question of online cheating, or cheating in general, being a spectrum, right? It's nobody's denying that cheating once when you're, like, 9 years old and in a meaningless game is very much quite different from cheating prolifically, you know, dozens of times in money tournaments. I don't think anybody's saying those two things are the same, right. Which is why I think in this case it is very important to establish the truth on Hans's online record, which will give us then more information about how to proceed in the context of over the board. Yeah,
I would I would definitely agree with that. Like, another question I was going to say is, like, obviously everybody is innocent until proven guilty. That of course is the gold standard. But the question is, if it's sort of like, people seem to believe that Magnus is quitting because probably suspects something in his game. Do you think it's something like that, or something that's more like it's the rapid rise combined with potentially this online stuff that I think was already fairly well known before that? I mean, do you think it's just about, like, one game, or do you think it's probably something more nuanced?
I think it's a little more nuanced. I think, first of all, if Magnus had hard evidence, or he was suspecting something specific, he would have probably vocalized that by now. He would have made that clear. So I think for Magnus, my guess would be that it was the accumulation of things, you know, the rapid rise, and you know, maybe he suspected something about Hans's online chess. So I think it was an accumulation of factors, which is not a value judgment on whether Magnus did the right thing or not, but I think it was a combination of things, if I had to guess.
Okay.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I generally do feel the same way. I think that rating rise, I mean, I know a lot of people try to do comparisons, but certainly at the age of 17, it is very, very impressive. I think it's, 230 points or something in less than 2 full years. So probably it's a combination of that. Like I said myself, I've said this on my stream too, there have been rumors swirling for quite a long time as well. I find it hard to believe that Magnus hadn't heard something prior to this event. And, you know, I think also the other thing is, as we know, and obviously, I mean, I people who watch my stream certainly have said this. I'm sure this has happened on stream. You know, you can get suspicious of someone over one game. Obviously, that does happen, but it's very rare that you sort of hear things from multiple sources. It's not just like one person being salty over a game or like two people, things like that. It feels like you hear this rumor. I feel like has been heard from a lot of people, unlike almost any other case that I can think of.
Yeah, and I guess it's important to clarify that, like, even if somebody cheated in every online game that they have ever played in their life, that still does not prove, like, over-the-board cheating. It still does not give somebody the license to claim beyond a shadow of doubt that they've cheated over the board.
Right.
But, again, I think it's a fair ask for somebody who has a record of cheating in important online tournaments to be scrutinized more carefully. Right. And in some cases, you know, nobody has to explain themselves. It's a free country. You can say whatever the heck you want, or not say whatever the heck you want. But we also should not forget that invites are at the discretion of the organizer. So the point I made yesterday on my stream is that I think it would be a fair request from organizers, let's say for somebody who has had a record of online cheating, to be scrutinized, to agree to be scrutinized more carefully, and to explain themselves in certain cases. If they want to, you know, receive invites consistently to top tournaments. I don't feel like that's a really controversial statement.
No, I agree. I wonder then, do you think like organizers should basically potentially just ask the sites whether something has happened or not happened?
Yeah, that's to come back to our initial point. That's why I think it's so important to have that communication. Because also we should remember that cheating is a very corrosive thing in that it's human nature that when you've heard that someone has cheated, you just automatically become more suspicious of them in every game.
Right.
And Hikaru, I think some people might get angry at that, like, oh, is that a personal attack? Like, no, that's just human nature. Like, we play so many different people, and we assume that they're honest. But if we know that somebody has had a shoddy track record, it sometimes becomes harder to play because you keep having these thoughts that swirl in your mind when they make a certain move.
Right.
Which is why it's so important to allay the concerns of of top players, make sure that they're playing in an environment where they feel comfortable with all of the other participants.
I mean, I guess what do you think can be done differently to like what precautions can, like on site? I mean, more than anything else. I mean, because obviously organizers can ask, but do you think like just like the, I guess, meta wanding is enough? Do you think they're like obviously we have, you know, all these silly jokes, of course, about playing naked and things like that, but I mean, do you think like what's going on right now is adequate? Do you think like 15-minute delay is enough? Do you think it should be more or less? What do you think about all of these things?
In terms of the delay, I think 30 might be a good amount of time, because it occurred to me that with a 15-minute delay, somebody could potentially like wait for the broadcast to catch up and take 15 minutes on a move. But I like the idea of the delay. I think the delay is kind of a no-brainer. What do you think about that specifically?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think one thing that we haven't touched on yet is also like when it comes to these sorts of things, I think a lot of people don't realize that at the top level, if you're a very strong player, and I think Magnus said this in one of his recent interviews, I think he said something like he needed one move or maybe two moves in every game, and if he had that, he would win every single game. I believe he said that.
Totally accurate.
So like that's the thing also, is that again, when people wonder about the 15 versus 30, it is true. Like I would say in a game, they're probably like maybe if it's a really chaotic game, maybe like 4 to 5 super critical moments, but generally I feel like it's 2 to 3 for the most part.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem, right? Because then the barrier to entry shrinks. Like you know, somebody could be a strong player to begin with. That is still a point that I think is not made enough. The fact that, yeah, like you're saying, 3-4 critical moments and you basically become unstoppable. That's like Steph Curry, you know, who I'm a big fan of. That's like if you could shoot a basketball and at 3 points in the game, you could guarantee that the ball goes in the net.
Right.
Like
right.
You're basically going to win. A good team is going to basically win every game if they can like ensure that certain shots go into the net. Same with ensuring that certain moves are going to be the correct moves in critical moments. In terms of your initial question, are the measures enough? I'm inclined to say not fully, especially given that St. Louis, let's be real, has unlimited resources, right? They can invest however much they want in whatever technology they want.
True.
And I still feel like a lot of organizers treat this issue with a lot of naivety. I think it should never turn into a situation where players are treated with suspicion. You know, they're treated like they're going to an airport.
Right.
But I feel like there are elegant ways to invest in technology that's A, not that intrusive, and B, checks very thoroughly for stuff like earpieces and hidden cameras, and computers nowadays can be tiny and hidden in any other object. And we should stop pretending that that's just straight out of some science fiction movie, and we should take those things seriously, I think. And I don't see anything, again, objectionable in that statement.
Yeah, that sounds very good. I do have one, but then the really, and this maybe is a depressing thing to ask, but then there also are problems if it doesn't occur in top level events, because obviously, as we know, with top level events which have very big prize funds, like the event in St. Louis, which was 350,000, I think it is, just your casual weekend tournament, certainly you could end up in situations where it's tough, put it
it's not practical, I guess, to implement this in opens.
But you do think like in St. Louis specifically, this tournament, they can do more than what they're doing?
I would be inclined to say yes. Now that kind of makes me an armchair quarterback.
Right.
But I don't know exactly what those things could be, but I know there's a lot of technology out there. I was talking to a friend, actually. He's 1700. He's a college friend. He's a big computer science guy now. So he knows a thing or two about like security. And he mentioned a device. They might have already had that device, but it basically sniffs out packets, I think they're called, that go out of a certain playing area. So it basically scans universally for any type of signal. I'm probably speaking like a fool right now because I don't know much about this, but I think people can get the gist of it. So something like that could really go a long way.
I think Chad is saying something like Wireshark or something. I don't know what that is, but something like that. I think, yeah.
I'm looking that up right now.
No, yep. I mean, but I get the point though. Certainly, it's like, at certain critical moments. Again, I mean, I feel like this is very serious though, because of course, if you're talking about very limited instances, obviously with online, I think one of the things that generally gives it away when someone weaker does it is like you see the best move every single move. You see like 20 best moves from someone who's rated like 2300. I mean, not even Gary Kasparov can do that. Kasparov, Magnus, everybody else. Like we can't play the 20 best moves in a row, but certainly. If it's only a couple of moves, then yeah, it's very very difficult to catch.
Yeah, I think in terms of like open tournaments or tournaments with less security, at some point they started banning phones in the playing hall. But I've always advocated that the punishment for over the board cheating should be like the model that was used for littering outside, right? You can't catch every instance of somebody throwing something out of their car window. But if you raise the punishment, and if you make the punishment, really strict, then it disincentivizes people from littering, because that if you're the 1 in 1,000 that gets caught, why don't I just like not throw the cigarette out of the window? And I think something similar could be adopted in over the board chess. And perhaps even in online chess. I think it should be disincentivized to the point where people realize that if they get caught, cheating, let's say online in a high profile tournament, it just, makes it hard to
play, period,
to keep your career going.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to ask you a question, because I mean, we played this game in the US Championship, as you remember, I'm sure. I think actually we played twice, but I was referring to the one in 2015. We had this game in the Dragon. And as you know, basically you out prepped me. I don't know if you see my stream, or if you happen to have a board handy, but we got to like a critical position, and I think somewhere around this move 14 after bishop g5, I basically realized that I didn't know exactly what I was doing. You tricked me with the move order. Yeah, so I sacked this exchange. I'm kind of curious, like, in a game like this, for example, how many moves, like around this point where I sacked the exchange and played a5, do you think you would have had to like know what the best move was in order to just beat me and prove, because it's like plus 1.4 roughly?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think really if I had maybe two consecutive moves here, I would have had good, because I think there was or maybe a few more because I'd get a winning position, then you'd get out of it and beat me.
Okay, but I mean for the sake of the example,
for the sake of the conversation, yeah, I get what you're saying. I think there was this idea, I don't remember what it was, that was a little bit unconventional here, that basically led to a nearly winning position, but I don't remember what it was. I think I played a3.
Yeah, apparently computer says I guess it says a4, and it's just very straightforward, like rook c8 and you go rook e1, and probably just f4 e5.
Right, actually, so if I knew a4 and rook h1, I think I could probably put the rest together, right? So almost nothing, like 2 moments, and
right, and you
totally changes the trajectory of the game.
Right. Yeah.
Instead, I started going knight e2 and back to d4.
Right. So basically, but yes, if you knew if you knew those two moves, you almost certainly could put it together, because obviously there's no other real idea that makes sense in this position. I mean, if you don't play f4, what are you even playing here? So it's just knowing to play like rook he1, f4 and e5, and that's it basically. So yeah, maybe there's still tricks, but objectively it's very, very simplified for sure.
Yeah, and that's also why I always get annoyed at tournaments when I see people like talking to each other. I'll come up to people and shake their hands like, how are you? But if I see people having a prolonged conversation, I'm admittedly pretty paranoid at tournaments. Like, I'm just going to be totally honest and say that I notice anything a little bit out of the ordinary, and I'm already kind of on edge, precisely because even a 23-2400 player, give him 4 or 5 moments in a game and boom. In most tournaments, it's still very practical to go to the bathroom with your phone. It still is very easy to accomplish in the vast majority of open tournaments, right?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I haven't played most of the open events in a while, but like actually back when obviously back when I was a different time, like 10, 12 years ago. But certainly when I think about events like the World Open, of course, there was no monitoring anything, so it was very, very easy. So yeah, it's a tough situation for sure. I guess like to move beyond all this. So do you have any general thoughts on the tournament and what's kind of going on?
You mean specifically to?
Well, I guess like do you think? I mean, I guess let me ask this: do you think like the players? I guess do you think the players are playing their best chess? Do you feel like the players are just kind of in this weird sort of situation where it's kind of difficult to be inspired?
It does seem like it's difficult to be inspired. I'm getting the sense there are a lot of pretty quick draws. And I don't think it's necessarily because the players, think anything. I think it's just that this has kind of overshadowed the games themselves, right. Which is sad on the one hand, but on the other hand, it makes sense that it has. This is just what tends to happen when you have a pretty big conflict like this. But I do get the sense that the players just seem to be pretty jaded from it all, and hoping for a resolution. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I definitely, from seeing the games, it doesn't seem inspired. Like I felt like the last game that really seemed good was that game between Fabiano and MVL, which was on the day when everything kind of blew up. Of course, I think they didn't know anything about what was going on. But yeah, it just feels like everyone's kind of going through the motions, and they're playing here or there, but just not really that into it. Like already today, we had one quick draw, the game between Shahryar and Jan, which was just all theory. It looks like Fabiano and Lever. I mean, I guess this game could get interesting a little bit potentially, but it also feels like it feels like White's somehow going to probably take on a6, go like rook g4, and I mean, I guess that probably Fabiano gets the pawn to a6, and some point Black plays like a bishop g1 and sacks is my guess. But I feel like it most likely. I mean, computer doesn't actually think computer actually really likes Black, but I feel like something like that's going to happen probably in this game.
Yeah, although it could get dangerous, I guess, for White if Black has 3 passers at some point.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I guess Lenier's game, this is I don't know what's going on in this one. Well, how do you actually, I was going to ask you a separate question as well. So it's like one thing that I think you've probably noticed, and I know you've written books on like endgames and things of this nature, is what do you think of the assessment of like rook and 1 pawn or rook and 2 for a knight and bishop? Like, I'm assuming that when you were growing up and you're learning chess, you probably preferred having the knight and bishop a lot more than like a rook and a pawn, I'm guessing.
Yeah, although I started realizing that like very often endgames are clearly delineated between positions where you have just bishop knight against rook, which are often very good for the rook, and if you add another pair of rooks, then the landscape changes completely and the 2 pieces are favored. I feel like as I get older, I like the 2 pieces. So in this position, if I had to say a side I prefer without looking at the engine evaluation, it's definitely White. But a lot of people would look at the ruined pawn structure and just assume Black is better. But that's very, very deceptive.
Yeah, so like because I've always actually preferred like the knight and bishop to the rook. There are many instances of that, but I feel like somehow the computer generally it prefers the rook, and it shows like why the rook is better for the most part. But I feel like as humans, it's always much easier to play with the bishop and knight instead of the rook. Plus,
when they coordinate, they're kind of be held to pay. Black's king is probably weaker than White's king here. White's king could just chill on g2.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if White can get king g2 and knight e3 with rook d1 or rook b1, I think it's going to be very hard for Black to defend this. unless you get some queen c3 somewhere.
Yeah, definitely black would be, black would kill for a queen trade here.
Right, right.
Queen d3 seems to be the engine move, aiming for g6.
Then after king g7, h4. Wow.
h4 open it up that way. Interesting.
Yeah, that's very, very kind of unusual. Because to me, it seemed like I thought the idea would be to play like knight e3, king g2, like maybe basically like after rook c8, knight e3. I don't know, like d5, king g2, and then at some point knight g4 or h4. But I guess already here after king g2, there's queen c3.
Queen c3, yeah, and you have to, but then queen d1, I guess.
d1. Yeah, I mean, it still feels kind of hard to play for black. Again, a computer obviously says you play, yes, the obvious h5, the very obvious h5 here, of course. Yeah, that's
covering g4.
Yeah, that's completely insane. But yeah, I would say practically, I feel like this is a lot easier to play for white. Certainly, at this
agreed
point.
Completely. Hans is worse, I think, in the MVL game.
Yeah, I thought this opening should be pretty dry. Not knight b3. I thought this was supposed to be just dead zeros if black played this correctly, but something must have gone wrong here. So knight b4, knight c3. Knight c6, bishop d2, bishop f5. I feel like this is all theory.
Yeah, still looks very balanced.
And apparently bishop e6 is a mistake here.
Allowing the queen to shift out of d1.
Yeah, I
central pressure.
Then again, if knight a b8 is apparently a move that's very difficult to play. Very, very difficult to play.
Yeah, what is I guess the idea is eventually just to activate the knight.
Probably, or maybe you're also just asking white, what does white do? Because the queen, how do you bring the rook? You want to bring the rook to d1, but you can't do it. And obviously, if you trade the queens, then there can't be anything there. So I guess it's just like white's kind of stuck. You don't have a good move here.
Yeah, no targets.
Maybe knight d2 and queen b3 is an idea, but still, it doesn't feel very. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's much. But knight b8, of course, very difficult move. So he played bishop e6, e2, bishop f5, bishop e4, and queen d7. Interesting. That's an odd move to me.
Allowing rook d1 with tempo, and then after in the game position,
right? Takes like now knight d5.
White's made
right?
some gains. Knight d5, yeah, and if black's knight moves, then you take twice on c8.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because of the fork at the end. Yep,
and the knight from d5 can jump back to f4, like rook fd8, knight f4. I guess queen e4.
Yeah.
I mean, I could still see this fizzling out.
Yeah, I mean, computer says rook d3. Seeing this from a distance feels kind of difficult. And also, I think the other thing is if you're very unsure of what's going on, I think it's very hard to play a move like knight d5 as well. Like if you're a little bit uncomfortable, you've been hearing all this stuff and you're not sure. Like I think knight d5 is a very difficult move to play.
Yeah, you're kind of walking on hot coals.
Right, because so he plays knight d4 instead, which actually I kind of like this too. Small advantage still for white, maybe, if everything comes off with the double pawns on f5 and f7.
Yeah, what an annoying move to face. It just takes the life out of black's position somehow. Right,
yeah, this I actually really like knight d4 because no risk again, and white probably should be slightly better here. But yeah, still a long way to go.
No, but for sure this is unpleasant for Hans. But yeah, it does feel like the players just kind of want. The problem, as I said yesterday on my stream, is it's hard to think of a satisfactory resolution to this. I feel like this is bound to drag on for a long time, which is a little bit disturbing.
Right.
But it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both have the same thoughts that there's only one reason Magnus could have done this, and if we assume that's the case, it is very hard to see a resolution that doesn't take time because. Say, for example, if Magnus believes that and say he submitted some report or something to FIDE, for example, they have to investigate, which then means it's going to take quite a while. And it's just very hard. Yeah, I just don't see anything that can happen in the next couple of days. I mean, short of Magnus literally saying he stubbed his toe and it's all some big misunderstanding. But of course, he would have already said something for sure. He would have said something. There's no doubt. So, yeah, I don't know what the resolution is going to be. I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think laying out the facts is important. I mean, right now, the facts that are yet to be seen are, the extent of Hans's online cheating. So I'm sort of fully expecting, hoping for a statement from Hans to that effect.
Right.
I think that, in general, people in the chess world are they are forgiving and they are willing to look past certain things. But at the same time, you know, we have to establish, you know, in terms of understanding whether Magnus had any credibility in doing what he did, I think establishing the extent of Hans's online cheating is very important. It gives us an important source of facts.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I assume we'll hear something, although again, if we don't hear anything, that also kind of there still is no solution in a way. It just means that we know that something happened with Hans on chess.com beyond what he said, but we don't know what that is exactly. So I don't know. It's it is tough. It is tough. Although, you know, actually I did want to say one thing though. And of course people can speculate on this and they will, but one thing that I did find a little bit unusual about it is that, and maybe you've heard the story, but you know, I played Daniil Dubov in one of the Meltwater events. It was like the grand finale, and there was one moment around like move 16 when I just had to go, and so I went to the restroom. It was this like Sveshnikov or whatever, and basically he thought there was something weird there. Now I came back, I played a move that was not the best move. He blundered a few moves later, I won the game, but he basically, I know he had said some stuff to quite a few people privately. He thought there was something wrong. Now Chess24, obviously they went through it, there was nothing there, but when that happened, I did not say anything about that at all. I just like, okay, well, you know, I didn't just prove it, kind of. And so that is one thing that I thought was a little bit odd, I have to say, about the situation. Just a little bit odd.
So you're saying,
I'm saying that Hans has been very aggressively out there, and when I had the situation with Dubov, for example, like, I mean, I could have just booted up my stream and like just gone right after him. I mean, just said a lot of stuff, and I didn't say anything at all. So I thought perhaps some of the reactions from Hans were a touch unusual.
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely some of the stuff, you know, Hans's behavior after the first two games was, you know, not necessarily to my liking, but, you know, on my stream at the same time, I think it's very important to distinguish between, you know, I think for some people they are forming a somewhat unobjective opinion based on the fact that they, you know, feel like Hans, let's say, acted in an unsportsmanlike way. So I think it's important to keep those things separate, but I agree with you that, you know, he obviously is very, very vehement, and, you know, in order for Hans to be consistent, I think he should definitely clarify the chess.com situation, because he feels passionately that he's telling the truth, and so, you know, he should stick by it. And if he's silent, then, you know, then that's kind of weird in and of itself.
Okay,
but I would, I think the public perception is right now against Magnus. But do you think that Magnus should come out and say something? Do you think it's like morally incumbent on him?
I don't know what Magnus is supposed to say exactly. I think it's a situation where something feels a little bit off. Who knows what, again, whether it was like that one game, whether some accumulation, whatever it might be. But I think it's very hard for him to, but it's certainly clear though that by not saying anything, that is the reason. That is just the reason. And end of the day. There is no alternative. So I guess maybe that is his statement in a sense. And if he really does think something is off, he can always probably just quietly go and say something to FIDE, or they can investigate and go from there. But I actually don't think we're going to get a statement from him.
That's interesting. Yeah, with every passing day, I think you're more likely that you're right. Yeah, and I see a lot of people in your chat like asking me about Hans's analysis. I talked about that already in St. Louis. Like, I pointed out that there are two indisputable, like, I think red flags is a pretty loaded term, because when I say that, people already assume that I'm saying he's cheating, which I'm absolutely not. But however, whatever word you want that's more palatable than that, two weird things. Obviously the online cheating, and the second thing was the interviews. And I think even Hans would have to admit that, you know, his behavior during the interviews was definitely strange. So that's really the extent of it to me. And, you know, hopefully if both of these things get clarified, then I think we're going to get a lot more clarity in the situation.
Right. No, well said, certainly. I mean, I thought in general terms, you know, one thing about the games is, like, you know, we've played a lot of games. There are some positions in Blitz where you just very quickly assess them as winning. I was just a little surprised perhaps that some of those positions that he said were just winning in a Blitz game. I actually do expect that reaction in a Blitz game from someone, but I thought it was a touch odd, like in a classical game where you have so much time to think, to try and just come up with that with saying it's just winning, because obviously what you do normally is you proceed through the line and you actually look beyond that, because you don't just say it's winning. Like Fabiano, I think is a great example where whenever I've played him and he gets the time control, let's just say Fabiano's beating me on move 41, even if he has that obvious move, he works the whole line out. He just works it all the way through to the end. He's just, I mean, he's a machine. Well,
right,
not literally, but yeah. So yeah, I thought maybe that was a bit unusual again, but who knows? Everybody's different as well.
Yeah. I mean, you could make the case, and of course, nobody's saying that you're like obligated to be coherent. Let's say in interviews,
right?
Again, there's no laws here. Like you have to do this, you have to do that, but it was definitely strange. I think that's sort of an objective truth. And I think it's just such a sticky situation. It's such a gray area. There's no hard evidence, and it leads people to speculate. And some people are like, well, you should put a lot of stock into that. Other people are like, you're in a witch hunt. Yeah, to me, it's really tiring, because so many people just get so angry about this,
right?
When in reality, there's just it's just objectively a tough situation.
Yeah, and again, if it's not going to be resolved, so it's probably just going to be hanging over the chess world for the next couple of months as well. And yeah, it's tough. But I mean, who knows? I guess it just remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think the best approach is to keep gathering facts and analyzing them objectively, and we'll see what impact this has on Magnus's reputation, Hans's career. But it's very hard to predict that at the present moment, I think. Right. Certainly. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But I do hope that the one positive out of all this is that there's some kind of agreement, certainly, because there is no agreement between like FIDE, chess.com, all of them. They kind of are doing their own thing. So hopefully there will be some kind of agreement on this. But I don't really see how this can affect Magnus again, unless he makes an actual statement. There's still it's not actually there. But I guess we'll see. Yeah. Geez, these last couple days have just been crazy. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I hope it gets better, certainly, but I don't know. I don't know what to make of the situation right now. And again, I think also compounding the matters when you talk about there's that one case with Rouzes, for example. This is, of course, has nothing to do with Hans, or no implication with that. But with Rouzes, I think people were suspicious of him cheating for like 3 or 4 years, for like a long time. People were sure that he was doing it, but nobody could prove it. And then after like 4 years, they caught it. So like the notion of a cloud like this hanging over someone like Hans for many years to come as well. It's just a very, very tough situation.
No question. And somebody in your chat is asking about I mentioned a video yesterday that was done by a Ukrainian. It's in Russian. It's done by a Ukrainian FM, who's sort of an anti-cheating specialist. He puts out videos where he analyzes title players to suspicious tournaments online. And it basically says whether he thinks they were cheating or not. And he has like a bunch of these high-level programs that he uses. He was looking at Hans's performance in a 2017 Title Tuesday. And in that tournament, the cheating was blatant. It was happening every game. And so that's really what leads me to assert that Hans really needs to clarify his perspective on his record. Like he needs to, I think, be very forthright about like how many times he cheated, when was the last time it happened, what were the prize tournaments that it happened in. Because if you're coming clean, I think doing it properly and unconditionally without obscuring the truth is very important.
Right.
Giving people a reason to take your side.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, because obviously he came out with this interview he did, and I mean, everyone's taking it at face value, I think, as they should. But then chess.com comes out with this huge statement, which I think essentially is saying that none of that is true. So I guess we see what Hans says.
Yeah, I mean, I work for chess.com. Obviously, I'm not entirely unbiased, you know that. But even before I worked for them, I've always put a lot of faith in their anti-cheating algorithm. You can confirm this, Hikaru, but tons of people just think it's so easy to develop an algorithm that catches, these crazy cases in many ways, already strong title players cheating. And the fact that it's been as successful as it was is really a testament to how consistently accurate their anti-cheating algorithm is. Is it perfect? Nobody's saying it's perfect, but
right. No, that's very true. Of
good.
course. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's true. Like, it's very, very tough to catch people, and I mean, all those people who work for them, I think they do an amazing job. And even Hans himself, like, he did say that. He said chess.com has the best anti-cheating methods.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
we'll see.
We'll see, right? We'll see. So I don't know if you want to stay here for a little bit more and go over the games. You want to bounce? It's really up to you.
Maybe we can take a look at the current positions, and then
sure,
and then I can
absolutely.
get going.
So let's see, Dominguez's game. Okay, we have Rook A C8 played. So I guess this is probably the critical moment, right? Actually, I mean, this gets back to what we were saying earlier. I think this, you can tell me if you disagree, but I feel like in this game, probably the next 3 to 4 moves, it won't determine like what the actual result is, but the course of the game for sure will be decided. Like, either white's going to be much better in pressing, or probably it's going to fizzle out very quickly, is my guess.
Yeah, so I guess black really wants a queen trade here, right? That's black's big goal in this position. What if white goes h4 straight away?
Yeah, h4, that does seem like a logical move. I mean, I mean, computers. I mean, no, but I mean, computer. I don't know how computers do it. I mean, it doesn't care. Rook f4, and I guess you don't worry about trading queen d3, and you have rook h4. You don't care about queen g6 or anything else. Like,
so hg, let's say knight. Queen d3, rook h4.
Yeah. Queen g6. I guess just king f8, and it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, when I start checking, you go like, I don't know, e8 and d7, and you're just fine.
God, engines are totally fearless. Doesn't matter what you throw at them.
Yeah, that's crazy. I actually, the more I look at this, I think he'll probably play h4, because for a human, it looks like the way to proceed. Queen d3, I guess somehow queen d3 to me doesn't feel quite right. Just because king g7 was the follow-up.
Feels a little artificial.
Right.
Well, maybe then h4, but I feel like h4 is more flexible to start with.
Yeah, I'd probably leave the queen on d2 also, because also after like queen d3, you have to worry about things like rook c1 or something potentially down the road. So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so I guess this is probably the critical moment. Okay, the other game, we got this position with takes, rook d5, knight e4 being played.
Looks like Hans is making steps in the right direction in terms of neutralizing this.
Probably, I mean, but queen d3, and then does knight c3, I guess you take with the rook or the pawn, I'm not sure. Probably you take with the rook, I'm guessing.
Probably, yeah, rook, and then if rook takes, queen takes with check, and black could end up losing the f5 pawn there.
Yeah, this could be, this could be kind of ugly potentially. Yeah, so probably queen d3, maybe. I mean, obviously the computer just says, says just ignore everything with a move like rook c6. Again, not a very logical move.
Wow. I guess the point is just to double on the c file. Yeah,
just double. I guess you're not worried about queen d4 because you can just go f6 and then rook c8, and now it all looks so obvious.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'd be kind of surprised by that, because it definitely feels like to human there's a bit of a pressure here. Feels like there's a bit of a there's a bit of pressure.
Significant. Queen f6 seems a little more human to me.
Yeah, queen f6 actually makes a lot of sense, right? And then I mean, computer likes queen I guess already here it's like it hinges on every move. Either Hans finds a couple of moves and it's only slightly better for white. I mean, if he finds the best moves, I think Maxime probably will end up this will fizzle out quickly. If he doesn't, I think he's in for a long struggling endgame probably.
Yeah, kind of a similar arc to Hans's yesterday's game against Wesley, in that difficult to defend endgame. But these top guys they're so good at squeezing out like 0.4, 0.5 advantages. I don't know how you guys do it. I feel like every time we get a position like this, it's equal in 2 moves. Yeah,
but I think you know a large part of what it is. And I think it's actually one of the reasons you do so well against us in Blitz is that I think that when you're at the top levels, you're trying very hard to get these small edges where there's like there's no risk, I guess is a way of putting it. And so like when I play against you, or when you play against these other top guys, I think we're so used to like the no risk that even if you do some sack that maybe is losing with perfect play, we're not used to that scenario, and so we don't generally respond as well as perhaps we would if we didn't play the style against each other all the time, where it's just
that
like
makes
small
sense.
Edge.
No, that makes total sense. So yeah, we'll see. Next couple of moves will determine a lot, and I guess in the last game,
this is, I guess.
Aronian.
I mean, if Aronian has to go rook c8 though, then I mean, I think Fabian is fine. I mean, rook g4 looks really dangerous somehow.
So scary, like rook b6.
I was gonna go to c6, but but I think with b6 there's probably a tempo somewhere. Like
some
rook
sort
b6,
of bishop g1,
maybe, or bishop, or even maybe bishop c7 and just sack on a5 and take g2 as well. Maybe. Yeah, I thought rook c6 made more sense. Then rook g2, a6, and yes, bishop g1 is okay, but I know.
Wow.
But yeah, position. I mean, this is bishop c5. This looks really scary, and no human's gonna go for this, I would think.
And then you get the rook and 3. Yeah, rook versus 3 pawns.
Yeah, and who knows what's going on there. I mean, it's probably a draw if the computer doesn't say that it's like +5, but still, yeah, very hard to very hard to assess for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we'll see.
Still potential for intrigue, but yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on the games.
Yeah.
And hopefully things fizzle out eventually.
Yeah, so thank you once again for joining. I think everybody really enjoyed it. Obviously a lot of people getting more insights and everything, and I mean hopefully I guess we hope that we get some sort of resolution to this, because the thought of having this hanging over everyone for the next month is gonna be unpleasant. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you, Hikaru. I always appreciate it. It's good to come on, and I just think people need to be calm and understand that we all want like a resolution. There are objective gray areas here, and I'm always going to encourage people on my stream to try to be as unemotional as possible, look at the facts, and go from there. But this was fun, and I hope people enjoyed the discussion. But thanks, Hikaru, appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Okay.
Of course. Have a good rest of your stream.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.